welcome to my channel. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you. People have asked me about hair typing, that they don't understand how to type their hair and how it affects their hair journey. So that's why I'm doing this, basically. So if you're one of those people who does not know how to type their hair, then this video is for you. First of all, there are different ways you can type your hair. There's not just one umbrella method of hair typing. There's texture, there's porosity, there's curl pattern, and of course, there's density. So this is going to be a two-part series because I cannot exactly exhaust all of them in just this one. So I'll speak on two today, and then next week I'll speak on the other two. So the first two is curl pattern and texture. The hair chart, if you look on your screen, involves 4 hair types. There are 4 hair types spread across different races. There's type 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. African textured hair is usually type 4. Some people, maybe people who are biracial or people who have like mixed textures, could have some type 3, yes, type 3 hair types, but most African texture hair starts from type 4A, 4B, and 4C. And that curl pattern is known as kinky or coily. So type 1 hair is straight, which is what most Asians have. Type 2 is wavy. Type 3 is curly. And type 4 is coily or kinky. So that's what we have, type 4 hair. Mine is like at the end of the chart, type 4. You see it right there on the chart. When you have type 4 hair, it's also important still, like it's not all the same just because it's type 4 hair. 4A is different from 4B and different from 4C. 4C is the most fragile one because of how tightly packed the curls are. So it's easier to break off because you have so many points where like your hair springs together. So it's considered like one of the most delicate curl patterns. How do these affect your hair journey? If you know your hair type, you'll know the kind of care that you should give to it that is going to give you like the best possible potential for your hair growth and the health of your hair. So if you have type 4A, you'll notice that while your hair is kinky, it's not very tightly packed, you don't have so much shrinkage, your hair is slightly straightened out, so you have like looser S-type curls, and your shrinkage is not as much, maybe at most about 30 or 50% or thereabout shrinkage. Your hair stays stretched most of the time. Even after you wash, your curls will hang down. When you have type 4B, your hair, it shrinks more, but I mean, you have more curl definition kind of, but it's not as loose as type 4A. Type 4C, on the other hand, you hardly would see curl definition. It's like the classical afro, it shrinks all the way. You can have as much as 80% shrinkage. Those hair types that when you pull out, you'll be amazed how much longer the hair actually is compared to, you know, when it's in a shrunken state, and it can shrink like all the way inside. That's type 4C because it has like a Z patterned curls, or coils rather, so they're very tight together. So one of the ways you can know what your hair type is to use some of these things I've mentioned. Your shrinkage level, you can take like one strand and analyze it and see how it curls. Does it do like loose S's or does it have like tight Z's? You'll be able to tell if your hair is type 4A, 4B, or 4C. Or you could just look on the hair chart and see among the curls or the types you see, which one looks more like your hair type. The second one that we're going to discuss for today's episode is texture. So there are a lot of misconceptions about what hair texture is. There are basically three major hair textures, irrespective of what race you are, which is fine, medium, and thick or coarse. So if you have fine textured hair, your hair might seem scantier, sort of, or your strands might just feel much silkier and smoother and really thin. The main thing is the size of the strand. So if your hair strand is about the size of a sewing thread, so you probably have fine textured hair. Now, on the other end is coarse or thick textured hair. Thick textured hair has like much heavier strands. They feel almost wire-like to the touch, and each one is really, one strand is like, maybe for people with fine textures, it looks like you put 2 or 3 strands together. So one strand is really heavy. So people who have that kind of hair texture, they can hardly hold a curl. Yeah, their hair would hardly hold styles that need to be curled. And beyond that, the hair might just feel really, what's the word, wiry, sort of. So the people, when you feel their hair, it feels very hard to the touch, you know, except when it's like super moisturized. But even when it is, it doesn't have the same kind of softness that people with finer textured hair might have. And then right in between those two is medium. So the medium textured hair is not as fine and it's not as coarse. It's just right in between. So it's the size is smaller than the thick one, but it's not as thin or wispy as fine textured hair. And ideally, right, most people will be like, oh, I would want to have this one, or I feel this type is better. But really, whatever texture you have, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you take care of it. You know how to take care of that texture. So the first thing is to identify what texture you have, then learn how to take care of that particular texture then you have, because there are plenty of naturals with thick hair, with fine hair strands, with medium texture that have like amazing hair. So it's important to note that your texture does not necessarily determine if you will have good hair or not. I think my hair strands are medium. They're not fine, but they're not thick either. So I have a lot of density, which we'll discuss in the later episode, but I don't have coarse or thick strands. I have medium. They're not as thin. So I think when you analyze, use the sewing thread. You could put a strand of your hair right by a sewing thread, and you'll be able to compare them, and you'll be able to tell if your hair is just about the same size, you probably have fine textured hair. If it's slightly bigger, then you probably are in the medium texture range. But if it is so much bigger than the thread, then your hair is coarse. And if you feel your hair and it has that wiry or really thick feel to it, chances are you are also on the thicker end of the hair texture spectrum. So I hope that's helpful. Once you've been able to identify your hair based on these two that we've discussed today, curl pattern and texture, then you'll be able to move forward. And next week I'll bring you the other two so you can understand your hair type fully. Thank you so much for watching up until this point. Please, if you've not subscribed, just click the subscribe button. You can turn on notifications, you can share with your friends, and I hope that you keep coming back to this channel. Thank you so much and have a nice time.